Oh goody, another YouTuber complaining about how the Legend of Korra is trash, how the technology makes no sense, and how Korra is a terrible character, and blah blah blah. Look, I didn't even want to make this video, alright? The Legend of Korra fandom is more divided than the Great Divide, and I knew that if I went down that rabbit hole, I was not gonna make it out unscathed. Unfortunately, it's a relatively popular series, and I actually came to really enjoy The Legend of Korra in the end, meaning I am physically obligated to talk about it. But there is one ground rule I want to set to give this discussion some semblance of a structure. I will not, under any circumstances, compare it to Avatar: The Last Airbender. ATLA had the luxury of having one cohesive plot stretched out across 3 seasons, whereas Korra, thanks to its fucked up production schedule, was basically 4 stories one after another. So, I don't know, I feel like reviewing the series under the same criteria as its predecessor just wouldn't be very fair, you know? Anyway, The Legend of Korra. Y'all know the setting. Aang kicks the bucket, this chick with the swole arms is the new avatar, and balance must be restored. Now, when people start talking about the show's flaws, I usually hear things about the love triangle, the mecha shit, or Uno what's-his-face, and I'm inclined to agree. But after giving it a little more thought, I realized that all these seemingly unrelated complaints were a product of what I think was the real fundamental problem with The Legend of Korra. Instead of having characters motivate the plot, this series used the plot to motivate the characters. So, like, the thing about Book 1 and Book 2 era Korra is that the conflict was largely external. When Korra ends up in bootleg New York to learn airbending, she does so because people make her. When Amon and his equalist goons go all nuclear on the city and the Korra squad has to take him down, they do so because they were caught in the middle of it. When the North and South Water Tribe get all pissy at each other during the Civil War, Korra has to be all peace and love, man, because the world forces her to. And when Korra goes all Attack on Titan to fight Unalaq and his Dark Avatar tomfuckery, Korra does this because the plot demands she does. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they should have let the world burn or anything. I just mean that narrative-wise, most of what Team Korra does is in response to the current shitstorm, and not exactly reflective of anything personally meaningful. Even when the group went off to do their own little side plots, it's like, I don't know, they did so because the ongoing conflict needed a reason to separate them. Their individual goals at the time, being a cop, an actor, future industries, spiritual enlightenment, were all external pursuits that didn't really challenge their character all that much. And by then, it felt like the show wanted us to care more about the Avatar world than the Avatar characters. Oh, speaking of which, this is probably a good time to talk about the setting a bit. I know people like to give this show a lot of shit for its 1920s quasi-Manhattan aesthetic, but personally, this was my smallest issue with the show. Yeah, I'm not sure motorbikes and giant mechas would have existed concurrently, but I know jack shit about technological advancements, so I'll let it pass. No, it only really bothered me because it felt like LOK had such a hard-on for it. Like, we'd get all these extended sequences of pro bending and Bolin's Nuktuk mover, which is beautifully animated to be fair, and I'm like, that's cool and all, but why do I care about this on an interpersonal level? Even the more traditionally Avatar stuff, like the spirit world, I felt was getting a little lore heavy with all this talk of convergences, fog of souls, and time trees. But it wasn't until Korrava and Unavatu duked it out did I start to think that this series was trying to flex on us by being visually bigger than the story itself. Hey, to that end, can I just talk about how freaking dark this show was? I don't mean dark in terms of story, I mean literally dark. Like, I'm only an amateur color theorist, but dude, what were they going for with all these desaturated colors going on here? Were the Roaring Twenties really this bleak? Like, check this out. Like, doesn't that look better? Just saying. But yeah, I'm sure this is a fresh take on the series that no one's ever stated before, but Book 1 and Book 2 had a rocky start. Then Book 3 happened. Now, I know a lot of people like to talk about how god-tier Book 3 is, and at first I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, how good could it be? Then I actually watched it and was pleasantly surprised to find that Book 3 took all the aforementioned problems of the previous 2 seasons and turned them on its head. And like, I was expecting a slow burn of improvement, but right in the first episode, they start talking about rebuilding the Air Nation and how meaningful it is to them, and I was like, hold up, is Team Avatar actually taking an active role in driving their own individual character arcs? Then things start getting a little more interpersonal when we meet Mako and Bolin's family and Lin's sister Suyeon, and I'm sorry guys, but I pretty much forgave 98% of the show's flaws by this lady's very existence. Whew. Anyway, we start diving deep into family drama, and I'm like, wait, now the characters' values are being challenged and are actually personally invested in the conflict? Alright. Then the plot happens, and Zahir shows up with his disturbingly human portrayal of an anarchist, and suddenly it's like, not only is the main villain threatening on a foundational level, but now they're actually dangerous for being an emotional antithesis to the heroes? Then Jinora gets her tats in a fucking beautiful ending, and I was like, this is the kick in the pants that the Legend of Korra needed. Instead of going with the flow of whatever the villain of the season throws at them, Book 3 was the first time where I felt like we were actually watching Team Korra's personal journey, as opposed to just watching them respond to shit. It's like the series stopped putting so much stock on the how, and more on the why, you know? And it all culminates in the ultimately satisfying ending of Book 4. I know a lot of folks like to compare the two series, but honestly, I don't think I can give some nebulous assertion of which one is better, because I really don't see much distinction there. Like, to me, Book 4 felt more like a direct continuation rather than any sort of sequel. I guess I would say that I found myself more personally invested in Book 4, if only because it was building on relationships that were previously established. Like, Kuvira's a badass chick and all, but I will admit the story stakes took a bit of a dip in favor of more character-building scenes. A service here and a sacrifice there, but still operating under the same narrative principles of Book 3. But anyway, it's not just even the characters that got the royal treatment. The setting itself got a massive glow-up too. Cause like, the Avatar universe has always sold itself as this immersive, fantastical world of various elements, cultures, and philosophies, but it's kind of hard to buy that when 80% of your story took place in the same damn city. That's why I was so pumped when I realized we were going to go back and see the rest of the world in all its beautiful glory. Ba Sing Se with its infamous snobbery, the inspiring growth of Air Temple Island, the enrapturing mess that is the swamp, and holy shit man, get me a one-way ticket to Zaofu. Like, look at this. Tell me this is not the place to be. I mean, it also helps that the show remembered that vibrancy is a thing that exists and actually brought some color into this universe. Especially for Republic City, because until Book 4, I was mostly ambivalent to it. Like I said, I didn't really have a huge beef with the whole steampunk aesthetic like a lot of others did, but it was kind of hard to root for it to thrive when all we saw of the city by that point was the ugly side full of corrupt douchebags. But by the time Kuvira rolled up, I actually started to give a shit about the city and cared about its citizens. And I think that all ties back to why I eventually came to love The Legend of Korra. It wasn't until maybe 2/3 into the series that I actually felt like all of the characters were truly united. Ironic, given they live in the United Republic of Nations. Like, at some point, it stopped being about Team Avatar and the side characters that were just conveniently present during the crisis, and it became an ensemble cast of lovable misfits that were emotionally tied together. Even a resident asshole like Varric, who I initially wrote off as just a comical plot device, became endearing to me when he started acting like an actual person. Now, at the end of the day, I can't really blame The Legend of Korra for being inconsistent as all hell, because, let's face it, the show staff kind of had their hands tied the whole time. If having 3 unplanned seasons wasn't hard enough, being continuously fucked around by Nickelodeon's broadcasting schedule probably didn't do much for the crew's morale. But all things considered, I think they did a pretty bang-up job with this series. Like, there wasn't any particular character I vehemently hated or anything. And I appreciate that the show was able to recognize its own mistakes and make a concerted effort to improve upon it. I mean, if this is the last time we see the Avatar universe in any televised form, then I'm glad that The Legend of Korra ended on a high note, and that we'll never again have to see this beloved franchise milked dry for content again. Oh shit. You know, I just realized I didn't even talk about the love triangle train wreck in this video. Huh. Anyway, I love making these videos for you guys, but they do take a lot of time to produce. So if you want to support the growth of this channel, please leave a like, a comment, and hit that subscribe button. Oh yeah, and share this video with your peeps too. That helps a lot. Until then, stay tuned!